My name is Yulia, and I'm come from Ukraine.
I'm Nastya. My name is Nastya, and I come from Russia.
I speak 2.5 languages. My mother languages are Ukrainian and Russian, and in Russian languages, we have only one word for peace and for world. It's a mir.
It's the same word.
It's the same word. So for me, in my imagination, in ideal world, peace is everyday life when you feel safe, when you feel free to be yourself. Doesn't matter which gender, which age, which situation, which social level you have.
Well, I was born in Moscow, and I was born in pretty conservative family, and I went to school full of also Russian kids, but also we had some immigrants from Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan. So in our class was at least 4 boys from Tajikistan and Uzbekistan, and sometimes kids can be very cruel, verbalizing all these things from the parents, from the society. So these kids was really bullied, and I wasn't the kid who was, popular. So I was like a, little gray mouse, and I felt so powerless and scary for these kids. And with this, I don't understand why, my classmates are doing these things. It was really awful. So I was really, feeling powerless, also with this idea like, yeah, but I also can be bullied, anyone can be bullied, and nobody will protect us, because teachers was also ignoring it. And I was very lost about this because they had the power, and they didn't interfere. Yeah, so that was a greatest disappointment. And when I grew up and I became a teenager and my classmates started, dating, this is very big excitement, in this teenage age, and dating boys, and I tried to, and I didn't really find that I like it, and I was thinking something wrong with me, that I'm broken, because I'm not really enjoying it. So when I grew up and I turned 20, so then I met a woman who said, yes, I have my wife. I said, what? Your husband? She said, no, wife. And then I realized the people like me exist, that the people can have different sexualities. And I was so shocked, not even by this idea that we have these people, and I might be the one representing the LGBTQ plus community, but I was shocked that till that age, I didn't really know that these people existed. Nobody told me. It was like a big taboo in the society, so it was really a big sadness, And I met, some people like me, I'm lesbian. I realized it's so important to hear the stories, to listen the voices, which is most probably unheard in our society. And we have many voices like this. It's not about the LGBTQ plus community, it's about so many things.
I think my story started from my childhood too, because I was this small girl with many activity inside of me, and I always was really courage and really active, energetic kid. And sometimes my relatives told me, "Oh, you're a girl. Please be more polite. Please be more quiet. Please don't tell this. Don't do this." And all the time I was, why? I'm saying true. I do what I want to do. I don't do bad things. I just live my life. Why I need to be some kind person or some framed person? Yes, and I remember all my school ages, and all the time I was a really active person, and I was in school government. Even I was a president of this government in the last school year, and we did many things. Some events, some meetings, some activities, and all the time we tried to talk with teachers, with directors, with this head of teachers, and try to explain our needs, our feelings, and try to connect, trying to build real dialogue on the same level, not like this. You must do this because you are child. That's why, and I'm teacher. And maybe that's why I choose my profession. After school, I became a student in psychology, but after university, accidentally, I was. I was asking to help with some work, and my friend asked me to help to be like a assistant of teacher in Montessori private school. And for me, it was wow, because first time I realized good pedagogical approach exist. And I became a Montessori teacher, and all my professional life, I really feel my important work because we raised new generation, and we told them about peace, for example, about some stereotypes and discrimination, and about really good values to be humans.
Yes, and I opened the whole universe for myself, and I just start making my first steps, see who I am, what I like, with whom I fall in love, and I realize it's women. And then I was invited to do some project with LGBTQ plus community to lead the group of psychosocial support for these people. And I was invited on a coming out day. Coming out day for our community, it's a big day celebrating any sexuality you have. So that took place in a cafe in Moscow with beautiful poets and musicians, playing guitar, dancing, doing some art. And that was the moment actually when in my country the new law passed by, which was about against propaganda of homosexuality. Nobody knows what does it really mean. Am I the propaganda itself, or what does it mean? But this law brought a big portion of aggression in the society. So when I was invited to speak about my project on Coming Out Day in this beautiful cafe, I hold the mic and I was making my first steps on the stage, and that was the moment where 30 people with the masks entered the space and was hitting people, breaking the furniture, like tables, and one man was holding the gun, and it was surreal, like in a movie. I never experienced something like this. I took the mic and I was sitting like this in a corner waiting for this to over. But the greatest disappointment was not because it happened, but when the police came, many people was injured. Some people should go to the hospital. And police came and they said, well, maybe you just need to collect your things and just go home, and we're not going to open the criminal case. I said, why? They said, well, I think you understand, because the people like you, so we don't want to get into trouble. And I was shocked by what police said. Not even, of course I was shocked by aggression, but that was much bigger disappointment for me. I was like, but how? Why? We also people. Like, what is the difference? So, and that's how I think I grew this desire inside myself to become someone who is, doing activism, but also who is supporting the voices to be heard. So we, growing as a society and smashing the taboo topics and helping these people to survive, helping all of us not to feel, prejudice on ourselves and not to feel oppressed because of something, the skin color or where we come from or our sexuality or age or many, many things. Yeah. In my life, that was the period when I met playback theater. So playback theater is listening the stories from the audience, and with actors and musicians give the life for the story on stage. So when I met this type of theater, I was in love because I always had a passion for the theater and for social justice. And in playback, I felt like, ooh, these two things just merged. And that's what I really want to do, professionally, and teaching other people to do it. And I was really in love with playback theater as a tool for social transformation. Yeah.
In playback performance, we have actors on the stage, musician, and conductor who is leading this performance and who is opening this topic and ask audience about some feelings, some moment about this topic. And actors play it back on the stage, and through this performance we go from logical level, from opinions to the real stories. And we don't ask only what happened. We really understand why you have this opinion, for example, or these feelings, or these thoughts, because you experienced something in your life before this. And through the feelings, emotions, we could understand each other because we are people, all people. Once I was invited to playback performance by my friend, and after this performance I was so shocked, and I asked, how you do this. It's some magic. It's some miracle. It's impossible do this kind of art just now. Just you heard a story 1 second ago, and now you do really great work. And I wanted to learn this, and it became my big, lovely hobby. And after my lovely work, I went to rehearsals and to some playback courses, and we did performances in my city with different communities in my city, for example, with children, with teenagers, with parents in school, or, for example, open performance for people with some topics. I don't know, about sex. It's forbidden to talk in society about sex, for example, or about relationship with your mother, or about war in Donbass at that time, because we had many relocated people from Donbass, Donetsk and Lugansk region for that time. And we did many things. And in Ukraine, it's a huge community of playbackers, which is growing now, even in war, because it's really important tool to create safe space and to build community, to build something where you feel where you feel yourself. Yeah.
Playback theater, it's not solving the problem, but it's through the stories letting us to understand the problem. So we start to care. We start to get the knowledge, and from knowledge comes care, and from care comes change. Yeah, so sometimes we use playback theater for different purposes. We can use it for dialogue between two different sides who never imagined they could sit and talk quietly, not fighting. We can use this for healing, like after some, social trauma, climate change, or catastrophe or war. So for healing, then we can use playback theater also as a tool to educate people about something, some society, right? So now I remember one story which is showing the idea of the playback, about understanding the different perspective, like really go into this. So it happened, playback came to Nepal after the war as a tool of, social change and talk between, two different sides who was fighting. So that was a performance, and the locals was playing for locals. On every village, they have a very different traditions. So the lady came to the teller's chair and she shared a story. At the age of 14, she was pushed to marry a guy because of the traditions. So two boys was born, and the husband went to the war and never came back. So she's alone, she's a widow with 2 kids, right? So it's already the moment when you understand, the life might be not easy. But in this village, they also have a traditions and, superstitious. So being a widow is a bad luck. So she wasn't invited for the social events. People would gossip about her. She's going to look for another man, when she would go in other villages to look for the better future for her kids, right? So now we can imagine the life of this woman is so hard, being in a small community and being so pushed aside. So she shared the story. The actress played of this story. And the audience was these people. Nothing was new for the audience, right? They've been those people who was bullying her, who was not inviting her, gossiping about her. And now you can imagine, but how does it make a difference, right, to hear that? But it's very simple. human action. So after the performance, you know, all the people in the audience was talking, we didn't know it's that hard. We didn't know this. So hearing the same story from the logical level and empathy level can have two different impacts. So they really was in a safe space, you know, accessing the empathy level, and then this story changed their perspectives. It's a very simple act, but and at the same time is complex, because I think in the world we have lack of it. And of course, also for us, doing playback theater, the context is very important. So we're always learning, you know, do we have enough information about the context? And I can make a small example to understand it. So that was another performance in some country in war. So I will not say which country is that, so to keep it private. So the man came to the teller's chair and shared the story, which wasn't a story. Like, you know, in playback, sometimes we need more meat, more of the narrative, what happened before, what did you face, like how you deal with it, and how, like, dramatic arc, right, the narrative. But he just stood up and said a very short sentence. He said, today in the morning, I drank a cup of coffee outside by the seaside, and I enjoyed. So for us, we're like, okay, and then what happened, you know? But because it was locals performing for locals again, they understood the story. So in this particular area, it's a constant airstrikes. So to enjoy the cup of coffee is impossible. You're always feeling yourself in danger, you know, going to the shelter and struggling. So that cup of coffee and the moment of silence for this person was very different than for me. Drinking of, you know, cup of coffee outside, being now in Germany, is very different than for him, right? So the actors brought the social dimension, the context on the stage. So this sentence, this very simple story, became the story of all people, you know, in this zone. And I was thinking, wow, each of us in this world has its own cup of coffee. And it will be very different depending on where we are, what is our lives look like, and, you know, many, many things. So that's interesting, like how us doing this type of theater, we need to learn and grow as a human beings, and, you know, dig deep for context to educate ourselves. Yeah, something like that.
It was 23rd of February, late night, 2022, and we had with Nastya a phone call, and because of time zone, it was Nastya's birthday, first seconds of Nastya's birthday, and I said happy birthday celebration, and I went to sleep and woke up with a terrible situation, and I called her and said they bombing us, me and my friends leaving our city by the cars, and it was so surreal, because at that time really a huge queue on a gas station, and this rocket under our cars, and at the same time I was calling in delivery in Moscow to send her flowers and some balloons. Yes.
You ordered it the night before.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I had a birthday on 24th of February. And yes, that was the first phone call from Yule very, very early in the morning because I think it started at 5 a.m.
At
in the
5 a.m.
morning,
Yeah.
the airstrikes. So I got a phone call. And then it was really surreal, like you said, because at 10 a.m. in the morning, I was like really panicking, checking the flights, always being in connection with Yule, like, how are you? Like, are you okay? And Yule was crying and, trying to escape and change the route because it was bombing, shooting, so they constantly need to change the route. And it was many cars full of kids, actually, with Yule's friends, and it was families. And at 10 a.m. in the morning, I'm receiving the balloons and the flowers from my girlfriend Yulia, who ordered it all the way from Ukraine, calling the delivery in Moscow. So it was really very weird, like two worlds came together, like in a movie. And so 4 days, I think 4 days, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. I was just trying to figure out because when the war started, the prices went so up, like 10, 20 times more, like for the tickets to go out, and the borders start to be closed for, airspace, start to closing up for Russian airplanes and routes, destinations. So I got my ticket to Hungary. This is where I only place can go according to my vaccination, since the pandemic time. And that was exact country with the Ukrainian border, so where Yule can cross the checkpoint, the border control.
Yeah, and after 3.5 days, all my friends stayed in Uzhhorod. It's a western city in Ukraine near the border with Hungary, and I crossed the border by my foot, and we met in Budapest.
Go ahead.
No, you.
I need to be
because,
everybody.
because it's your grant first.
No. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway. And so yes, it's now we became more involved with playback theater, with activism. We did it before, but now it's much more. So it's our profession now, and what we do, we're working for peace building organizations, and we do the performances, we do workshops, for Ukrainians. Like Yulia works separately with Ukrainians. I do with, Russians who relocated. And we do sometimes also performances for the mixed audience with Germans, Russians, and Ukrainians. Through the stories, we try to, hear each other more, which means we try to connect more. And there is a miracle. I know it's very hard because of the context. To be together in one space. Many people now struggle with it, of course, and I acknowledge the complexity of it, yes, but at the same time, after our performances, we just see how people, drinking a cup of tea, a cup of wine together and talking, the people from different sides. Because, going through the performance, it's like not having the panel discussion, sharing the opinions. It's about like just, like, come to my kitchen, let's share the story, let's have a coffee. We just, sharing the stories. So it's bringing people closer to each other, and it's being able to push this wall and try to hear. I wouldn't say it's a dialogue, it's a too big word, but the contact, we try not to lose, because if we lose it now, so then I think the future might be different.
We were at many meetings, events, forums with these different sites, and always it was panel discussions, and it's really hard for people and I saw only on playback performance where people really have dialogue, really with all this context, with all this situation, but it's not I'm right, that's it. It's really dialogue. It's not easy, and it's not a magic. It's really hard work, but it works.
Yeah. Yeah, if we share stories but not opinions, then we really can understand why. And once we share it, the tension is down, and then we can talk. So sometimes it's like this, right?
I do a couple of projects with Nastya and couple projects separated. So I do project with Ukrainians in Berlin, which help them to adaptate, to integrate, and to live in this hard time. For example, last week we had performance with HIV plus people, Ukrainian people who are in Germany now. And it's different situation in Ukraine and in Germany with this problem, with this disease, because these people, Ukrainian people, have many stigma and many prejudice. And we tried to acknowledge this situation and to build, to help to build their community. So, for example, this, or we are working with Ukrainian refugee. This situation next week we have performance in Rome for Ukrainian community.
And in Berlin, we also do the project. It's also multicultural, cross-border, group, which is Ukrainians and Russians who is now in Germany. It's 25 people, and we're working with them. We will work for half a year, teaching the playback and using the playback as a tool for, having a contact, having dialogue, seeing, because now we're here in Europe, and of course it's, it will not change. Maybe it's, sad to say, but might not change for the closer future. But we need to live together. Mm-hmm. We're both in this city, we're both in this country, but then how we can, work together, support each other towards democracy and integration, and also, to get stronger. So this idea, we will do something now and we will think about the future, mm-hmm. By doing something now, we think about, how it will affect the future. So we do work with the Russians and Ukrainians. This is one of the projects which is quite unique. And I know we might get sometimes critique, for being together and but this is the people, they made a decision also for themselves to come to this group, to be together, and anyway.
Our project not so popular because of this situation, and yes, sometimes we face to hatred because of this. I remember one story in Australia. We did performance in a project Students Against Racism, and we didn't know there were some Ukrainians in the audience. We didn't know it before. And when we present us, me, Yulia from Ukraine, and this is Nastya from Russia, and Nastya said something in Russian. And one woman raised a hand and told, I don't want even to hear Russian language. I don't want to see these two person and one stage. It's so hard for me. And then we played this story.
The feeling of
these
her,
feelings, yes. Even it's not our opinion. It's not our. It's not what we think, but we played this honestly. And after that, this woman came to us and said, "Thank you so much. You understood me."
Yeah.
And she was relaxed after this. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, like saying, yes, we hear your story. You can be angry, you can be devastated. This is your right. So we see you, so we play back it for you, as it is.
And we accept you.
And we accept
Yeah.
you. It's also okay to have these feelings. And then the tension again down, and then we can speak. And we've been speaking with her after the performance and talking about different things and life. And I think without this moment, if she wouldn't share, maybe we never would get a chance to really, even say hello to each other, I think.
Yeah. And after that, she asked about us, about this strange couple, about how do you feel, and
Yes.
yeah.
That's true. Can you believe this jacket is 40 years old? This is the only piece of clothes I still wearing from my grandma. She was wearing it. She's now 83 and she was in her 40s when she got this jacket. And actually, yes, I brought it because it's not just a jacket. It's something in between me and my grandma, the connection we have now. Sometimes before she was bossy, like, look at your haircut. I don't like your jeans. You look like a boy, But now, I start to talk with her about, big things. And I remember first time when I came visit her since the war started, full-scale war started, I start sharing the stories, not opinions, the stories of my friends, my story. And she seems like she listened, and then she start doubting, and then she start using her critical thinking about the situation. And I was like, Grandma, I'm so proud of you. And I think now we're getting closer and closer. But for me, it's like a symbol of the connection between generations.
Yeah. I brought some magnet, and this is so clear information: make theater, not war. This magnet gave me one famous playback person from Israel. She is playback star. This old generation, first generation of playbackers.
She's in her 90s.
Yes, it's her 90s, and she's great. And this magnet remind me about Israel and Palestine conflict too. And I don't want our country to be like Israel and Palestine
with occupation
in the future. So I don't want this huge conflict, and maybe we need to make only theater.
Yeah.
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
Tell, please.
Now we have this a dream. Maybe it will never happen, but we hope it will during our lifetime. So it's very simple. It's something about seeing a childhood places of each other. Like, you know, we didn't have that chance because we had a distance relationships meeting in another country, and we didn't have time to show where did we live, where did we grow up, what is, you know, the lake behind the house, the favorite tree, you know, very simple things. And
Yeah.
it's interesting how essential it becomes when you not having them, you know. So yeah.
Yeah. Now we can't be in my country or in Nastya country, only in third country.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.